Welcome to the StoryADay podcast. This is Julie Duffy, encouraging you to be a writer today, not someday. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the StoryADay podcast. It is week 4 of StoryADay May. Have you been writing with us? Last week, we concentrated with the prompts on a bunch of tactics, tools, craft issues, things that would be helpful as you write stories. So we had a look, and you can go back to the website and you can find all of these prompts, but we looked at point of view, we looked at character, we looked at keeping secrets and how that can help you make a character compelling. We looked at the difference between what a reader knows and what the characters know. We asked what if, we talked about story questions, and we had an intriguing prompt about your character's first time. During the week, I was talking to people in the community, and they're pretty well settled into writing every day at this point, and they are feeling pretty good about it. Things that I'm hearing are that they didn't expect to be able to write this much. Even, people who've done this before know that they settle into this point where it just becomes routine to write every day. But for some of the newer people, they were really still delighting themselves by turning up and turning out stories. And I want to encourage you to join us in that. Like, even if you haven't been writing all month, maybe join us for the last week and a bit, and just commit to writing something every day, because you get that, you surprise yourself. You surprise yourself with what you're able to achieve. You surprise yourself with the stories that come out. I mean, this is why we do this year after year, is that we teach ourselves to surprise ourselves. And the theme for this week of the challenge, if you've been following along with my writer code, the theme the first week was W, to write, to just get to your desk. The theme the second week was refine, so you were invited to take a look at your practices and your stories, see what was working, carry forward what was working and let go of what wasn't. The next week was improve, so that was last week, where we looked at all these elements of the story and worked specifically on them. This week's theme is triumph. The idea being that, and this is grounded in behavioural science research, the idea that if you want to create a habit, if you want to reinforce good behaviour, so for example, you want to write more, then every time you do that good behaviour, you should celebrate. You've heard me talk about B.J. Fogg before in his book Tiny Habits. This is straight out of there and out of all of the research that the people like him are doing. And it's simple as, if you do the thing that you wanted to do a tiny celebration every single time. Nothing big. Don't buy yourself a gold necklace or, eat a pint of ice cream. Just acknowledge that you've done the thing. And it could be something goofy like punching the air and going, yay, I did it. Or it could be something goofy like dancing around your living room or wherever you are alone. If you can manage to be alone, or dancing with with the people who you're living with. Doing something that actually makes you feel good has all kinds of implications for your brain, and it helps to cement a behaviour as a thing that you want to do, because the reward is not just that you feel good for having done it, but you feel good when you do this silly little celebration, whatever it is that makes you smile. Putting a sticker, giving yourself a literal gold star on the calendar. So I'm very interested to hear what you would do to celebrate your successes. I know people who are giving themselves that mental high five. I know people who are doing a literal victory dance, and I know people who are doing the sticker thing. So these are some ideas that people are using, and using well, to congratulate themselves on keeping to their intention of writing this month. One of the things that celebrations do is they help us to manage our expectations. If your definition of success is only and only the final version of success, so maybe you have this vision of yourself with a published book and giving talks in a bookstore or on a stage, or being presented with the Caldecott Medal or the Booker Prize, or, if that is your only definition of success, that's very external for one thing. You can't really control that. You could write the best book in the world and it could never come to the attention of the Booker Prize judges. You could write the best story in the world and it could never be seen by the Story Prize people. But what is going to sustain you as a writer is taking joy from all of the other little steps involved in being a writer. You are going to have to congratulate yourself when you write a page. It's not something that's what you can control. So set your own definitions of success, and then you can manage your own expectations as well. For example, there was an invitation to write a very short story during the challenge, and people were kind of stunned by how long it took them. Which is, everyone's heard the thing about, I'm sorry I didn't write you a shorter letter, I didn't have time. But I want to say, I was giving a presentation last weekend and I had 3 minutes. So you think that sounds easy, you only have to talk for 3 minutes. I put so much work into that thing, getting it down to the 3 minutes that contained all of the salient points I wanted to make. Because you listen to this podcast, I can come on here and ramble about writing for 15 minutes or more by myself, but to get something crafted to 3 minutes, which was probably 450 words, was really, really tough. So writing a short story is actually quite difficult, as you may have discovered if you've been joining us, because you have to get so much into such a small space. So there's one of the areas where you might be finding that your expectations about writing differ a little bit from what you're discovering. And setting your expectations appropriately can make all the difference in whether you feel successful or not. So setting your expectations that you're going to write a short story every day, and it's not going to be brilliant, but it's going to be short and it's going to contain all the elements of a short story, or it's going to contain at least the skeleton of most of a short story. That's okay. That's an acceptable expectation to have, and it's something that you should celebrate your commitment to. So this week I really want you to think about what you do to celebrate your writing. Do you finish a story and then kind of scowl at it and say, well, it's not very good, but I'll come back to it someday? Or do you finish your short story and do you sit up in your seat and throw your hands in the air and open up your chest and look up at the sky and go, I wrote my story today? That feels very, very different. And it's important to do that. So that's the theme for this week at StoryADay. I also wanted to mention that my friends over at NaNoWriMo have their Young Writers program every year. They have a flash fiction contest, and they invite all of their young writers to write a flash fiction story and submit it, and there's feedback and it's a lot of fun. And last year they invited me over there to talk with Mariah about their director of young writers programs, and we had a great chat. We did this little workshop. You can find it on YouTube. I'll put the link in the show notes, where she asked me what flash fiction is, and I talked about it, and we took little writing breaks, and there were questions from the audience and things like that. So if you're feeling a little dry, if you feel like you need something to shake up the way that you're writing this month, I would encourage you to go and listen back to that workshop I did with the NaNoWriMo Young Writers Programme, just to give you some new fresh thoughts on flash fiction. I always find that when I go back to things like this, not necessarily talks I've given, but talks other people have given or courses I've taken before, I go back to them and I'm never in the same place that I was the first time I heard the advice. And my writing has moved on. I've moved on as a person. It's kind of, it's like a spiraling out. You know, you can come back to roughly the same place, but you're never quite the same when you get there. So you're a little bit further out, you're a little bit more advanced, you've tried some stuff. And quite a lot of the time I will go back to talks like this and favourite lessons from favourite teachers and listen to them again. And I will hear them completely differently, or I'll hear something that the person says that I didn't hear the first time, or I'll sit down and do the exercises again. And it just all comes out differently. So if you're feeling isolated or alone, I would recommend having popping over to YouTube and watching that workshop, because if you watch it in real time, you can sit and write in real time along with me and Mariah and all those young writers who were there last year. And maybe that will help you to get what you need to get done today in terms of writing. Very curious to hear how your StoryADay May is going, or how your writing is going in other realms. Are you starting to feel restless yet? Are you starting to long for long-form fiction again after all this short fiction? We have, let's see, I am recording this around the 23rd. So we have another week of stories to go. And yeah, so all you have to do is make it through one more week and you can declare yourself an unqualified StoryADay winner. I'm curious to hear how you're doing, what you're thinking, and what you've learned from this month. So if you want to send me an email, please do at julie@storyaday.org. Let's celebrate every single triumph this week and make it a habit to do that and take that forward with us. And let's just keep writing. Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week. And of course, keep writing.